and welcome back to the show. It's good to be here, and of course, it's great to have you with me again. I hope you've had a fantastic week since I last spoke with you, and I really hope that you enjoy the subject of today's conversation. It's one which is close to my heart because I used to be a teacher for many years prior to getting involved with property. And also, in the context of coaching and mentoring, this topic is also very important. And in terms of the practical steps that I've had to go through myself in my life, and undoubtedly, you will have experienced the same as well. So, what on earth am I talking about? Well, today we're talking about the learning curve and finding out where are you on the learning curve when it comes to money, finances. There's a saying, which again, you may or may not have heard in the past, which is you don't know what you don't know, right? So you could be somewhat educated in the subject, but not deeply. You could have no idea at all about a subject, or you could be an absolute expert in a particular subject. So, what I'm going to share with you today are the 4 stages of learning. And I'm going to put this into context in terms of money and finance. But first of all, I'm going to use a little analogy just to share with you what those 4 stages are. And then I'm going to equate them to how this works with your own financial situation. Okay. So, right now, currently, my husband and I are teaching our son to drive. And it's always a fascinating process to either be the one learning or to watch somebody else learn how to drive. So if you are a driver, this will completely, resonate with you. And if you're not and you've only ever been a passenger, it will also resonate with you because you'll kind of understand where you're at in terms of the learning curve. So the first stage of learning is unconscious incompetence, where you really don't know what you don't know, and you've been a passenger in a in the car all your life. You've watched other people drive you around, you've seen various activities and actions that driver has to do, but you've never really taken much notice. You pootle around and you look out the window and life's all good and it looks all pretty straightforward, right? So this is the blissful ignorance stage. And we've all been there, right? Whether you still are because you're either not a driver or you learning to drive, then you may be at that stage. But certainly all of us who are drivers do remember this stage very well. Then comes the conscious incompetence stage. And this is where my son is at right now. So he's sitting in the driver's seat and he's been learning the controls, of course. He's been learning all the actions that you need to do, mirror signal maneuver, learning how to do clutch control, gear changes, being aware of the road situation, reading the road, all that sort of thing. So he's becoming aware of all the things that it takes to become a good driver. Right. So this is where you become aware of what you don't know. Right. That's why it's conscious incompetence, because you're like, oh my goodness me, there's an awful lot more to it than met the eye when I first, sat in this seat. So it's the stage where you're really having to do the hard yards to learn the craft of driving and getting used to being in the driver's seat and navigating your way around the roads. And that leads on to the next stage, which is conscious competence, where you're starting to really get the hang of all these controls and the mirrors and the reversing, the maneuvers, other road users, road conditions, learning how to, when to change gear correctly, how to turn into a junction, etc., etc. And you're becoming quite fluent at it because all the things that you've become aware of are starting to sink into your muscle memory and into your actual memory in terms of how to do these things. And you actually become pretty good at it. And of course, the more you practice, the better it becomes, and the more easily you are able to drive yourself around. So this is the conscious competence stage where you're actually doing pretty well, and you get to the stage where you can actually go for your driving test and hopefully pass it, right? So that's the conscious competence stage. When you get into the next stage, which is the unconscious competence stage, that's when it's really all sunk in and you just driving around and navigating your way on the roads to whatever destination you choose, and you become absolutely, you don't even really have to think about it anymore. You certainly don't have to think about what you're doing when you're sitting in the driver's seat. You just drive. You are one with the car, with the road, etc., etc. And yes, okay, you might need to have a sat nav on or somebody to be telling you directions, but you don't have to think about the actual driving anymore. Everything just becomes automatic. It kind of happens on autopilot almost. In fact, for those of us who have been drivers for many, many years, it's almost sometimes you have journeys where you don't even remember how you went from A to B because it just was all so natural and it just went by in the blink of an eye. So that is unconscious competence stage. And then that's when everything is very effortless and easy. Okay. So how does this equate to our finances? Well, let's take a look. The unconscious incompetence stage. This is where, like I said before, you're in the blissful ignorance stage where you've got money coming in, you've got bills going out, you've got not necessarily that much of a clue of how much is going out or when it's going out or even what it's going on, what you're spending your money on. You might have spending habits where you just kind of do beep beep and it all kind of goes out of the window fairly quickly. And often people find themselves with a bit more month at the end of the money than they would like. Or just, living to the means that you have coming in. So you know how much is coming in and you think, oh, well, I can spend all that amount. I know I've worked with people who have some decent six-figure salaries and they live to their means, meaning that, they're spending everything that's coming in each month. Don't necessarily know where it's going, but it's going. And sometimes perhaps you need to get a credit card out or a loan just to be able to afford the things that you want. So it's perhaps these unconscious spending habits which are maybe leading you into a little bit of a world of trouble, perhaps. And certainly, if not now, then perhaps later on in life, because all of a sudden you get to a certain age, maybe late 20s, early to mid 30s, and you think, oh my goodness, I've had a great time, but I've got not really much to show for it. Okay. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not just talking about people who are on lower incomes. I'm talking about higher earners as well. So it's that pattern of spend, spend, spend without thinking about it. Okay. That's the unconscious incompetence stage of learning when it comes to your own personal world of finance. So, what do you need to do? Well, you need to become consciously incompetent, right? And this is where you begin to realize, well, something needs to change. Something needs to happen in my world. And I need to really take a check on what's going out versus what's coming in and start to really pay attention and actually see the flow of money, see what's actually going on in your finances so that you can start to go, okay, right, if I have a level of awareness over this, a level of awareness of that I don't necessarily have a grip on my finances, then at least that's conscious. You're no longer unconsciously spending. You're becoming conscious of your situation and what's going on for you. And that will then naturally lead to, if you want to, of course, to conscious competence, which is where you start to actually implement some of the learnings about how to manage your money. So you may implement cutting back on certain expenses or cancelling unnecessary subscriptions that are just going out of your account without you even realizing it. You might start to shop around for better deals on your insurance or on other big purchases that you make, or I don't know, bills. You can do lots of research on mobile phone bills and even, perhaps cheaper utilities and things like that. So you start to become more savvy around money and how much you're spending and how much is going out. You may even start to save money and start to budget for things, particularly big items like holidays, cars, maybe refurbishing your house, something like that. And so you kind of have a better idea of being able to maybe have pots of money that you're using for different purposes, and being able to allocate funds and allocate your money in a way that is going to be beneficial for you, and so that you're not just spending it all. And you may also have started to investigate how to at least keep your money safe when you're saving it, but maybe even to start to grow your cash funds and not just stick it in a regular bank account with absolutely, well, not very much interest these days. You might have actually started to realize, well, hang on a minute, there are other things that I can do with my money that are going to help to make it grow. And it may also be the case that you become aware, well, actually, I can start to make more money as well. I might get a pay rise. I might ask for extra hours at work. I might be able to start a little side hustle, or something around being able to generate more revenue so that you've got more to work with. This is the stage where you're becoming consciously competent with your hard earned, right? And the last stage is, of course, unconscious competence. And this is where you've got a really good grip, a really good grasp on the foundation, the fundamentals of how to manage your money, so that these actions are just on autopilot. All those things I've just mentioned are happening automatically without you having to think about it. And you are also getting very savvy about which vehicles, which investments perhaps you might work with that put money into your pocket each month rather than taking it out of your pocket. And where to put any additional funds that you have, so that when you have extra money coming in, you can automatically go, right, it's going there, right, it's going there. And you just have that innate ability and understanding of the mechanics of how to work with keeping your money, growing your money, and having it work for you. And of course, really importantly, you're able to have some fun along the way. It's not all hard work. You've got extra money to work with and to have and explore and have some fun with now, because you've got that solid, secure base. And now you can kind of think to yourself, well, actually, I can have some fun along the way. And it just becomes, securing your future just becomes a byproduct of all this activity and everything that you're putting into place now that you are unconsciously competent. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So it's really fascinating when we take people through the process of, maybe they're at the first or maybe the second stage of their journey, sometimes even the third stage. Quite a lot of people that we work with are consciously competent with their money. They just need to tweak a few things, change a few areas of their, money management in order to have making money work for them. And rather than them having to work for money, they might be very good at budgeting, very good at managing, but they just don't know how to grow it. And so there are tweaks and changes that you can make at every stage, even when you get to the unconsciously competent stage, which is where we're at. And you still can learn. You can still add strings to your bow that enable you to either increase your portfolio, tweak things that are, from not working so well to working even better, or, whatever. So it just becomes a natural part of who you are and what you do in your everyday life. It's not that you become obsessed with it by any means. It just means that you have that deeper level of understanding. You've become really an expert in your monetary world. Okay. And that's what we love to see. We love to see the people that we work with, our Freedom Club members, going from, any of those stages to progression into the next stage and the next stage, and then really expanding their outlook and their worlds. And, seeing the fruits of their labors come to pass, which is very fulfilling, not only for them, but for us as well. So, if any of this has resonated with you and you understand where you are at on those 4 stages of learning, of course, if you need any help, if you need any advice, if you need any any tweaks along the way, you know where to find us. And I hope that's been an insightful little episode to inspire you to think, okay, where am I at? Where would I like to get to? And how can I make that next move on my money journey? So until next time, I wish you a wonderful week and I'll see you then.